good afternoon. Oh, please. Especially our newly appointed officers and their families, and our friends from the press. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with a great deal of pleasure that I announce two extremely important appointments that will impact the economic landscape of what we are aspiring for, Bagong Pilipinas. So let me, first of all, since it is a new position, introduce Secretary Frederick D. Go, has been appointed as Special Assistant to the President for Investment and Economic Affairs, and a gentleman that I do not think needs very much introduction, as he has been in public life since we were very young congressmen together, uh, Secretary Ralph Recto for the Department of Finance. As I think even a very perfunctory research will immediately show, both Secretary Go and Secretary Recto are distinguished leaders whose expertise, vision, and dedication will undoubtedly contribute to the prosperity of our country. But before I proceed any further, let me explain where we are now on the road to recovery and transformation in moving past the damages of the pandemic towards the progress that awaits us as a reward for our toils. Economic growth in the third quarter of 2023 is at 5.9%, surpassing expectations and silencing some of the doomsayers who were saying that we could not surpass the growth rate and the economic performance of our neighboring countries and other countries around the world. Inflation has retreated to within BSP's 2 to 4% target in December, providing much needed relief to our consumers. Joblessness has gone to its lowest level in 18 years as economic expansion has harnessed the talents of the upskilled, the newly skilled, and the reskilled amongst our workforce. Meanwhile, the fiscal deficit and public debt are waning to within our targets at a faster than expected pace. While the future looks bright, dark clouds still gather on the horizon, unleashing headwinds that will temper, maybe even damage or trample our optimistic outlook. Abroad, escalating geopolitical tensions could dampen global trade, tighten global financing, as well as trigger fuel and food shocks that could tow inflation back up. And that is why we are watching it very, very closely and have some very well thought out options should that occur. Here at home, as we have been warning, there is the distinct possibility of the beginnings of El Nino for starting now and extending until the end of the first quarter, or perhaps even extending into the second quarter. So whatever harm it can cause, we have to cushion the impact with timely and targeted interventions so that food prices will not surge as a result of farm outputs falling short. The challenge before all of us then is not just to grow the economy, but to make sure that such growth is felt by our people of all parts of society. The dividends of economic growth must not just manifest in raised family incomes, but in the improvement in our infrastructure, in our healthcare systems, our educational systems. So in these endeavors, we depend upon the sound advice of our new Secretary of Investment and Economic Affairs in the person of Mr. Frederick Go. Secretary Go brings a wealth of experience that he has gained for more than 3 decades in the private sector. I have long used his very sterling advice even before the election and his capabilities, given that he has held positions in our country's biggest corporations. If there's one thing about, we recur to him, you now become SecDec. If there is one thing that is admirable about our new secretary, Secretary Go, is that despite him being comfortable in his own life, he knows he can still make a difference to our country. I trust that his fruitful years across many ventures have sharpened his acumen for the next big opportunity. He will be at the forefront when we take that leap towards economic growth. He has a vision of innovation, and Secretary Go will help us create an environment that will not just draw in investment, but realize them, ushering in an era of unprecedented growth across industries. As the SAPEA, apparently is what your office is going to be referred to, he will ensure the effective integration and implementation of various investment and economic policies of the government. Joining him in our economic team is the new Secretary of Finance, Mr. Ralph Recto. But before I go on to talk about Secretary Ralph, the reason that DECGO was chosen for this particular position is that all of you who have been traveling with me have heard from me often how that we are not satisfied just with the signing and the presentation of MOUs and LOIs. And in our discussions, I always said we have to make these real. And because many of these investments are going to be fully in the private sector, they can be PPPs, they can be joint ventures. Maharlika Investment Fund might also be involved. So his expertise lies exactly there in creating an environment that is interchangeable between government and the private sector so as to be able to make these investments real, to make them profitable, and to make them be felt in the everyday lives of ordinary Filipinos. And I have great confidence in his abilities in that regard, simply by looking at his record and seeing the great strides that he has made with all of the different private sector groups that he has been involved with. Now, with Secretary Recto, whose name and face is familiar to all of us, he has already had a remarkable career in public service, having excelled in various roles within the government. He will be a major player on how we stay on the path of growth, meet and even surpass our medium-term fiscal targets, and achieve our developmental targets. He will promote not just ease in paying taxes, but also in efficiently and effectively spending those collections, because the citizens' reward for tax compliance should be better and more responsive public services. He will continue to help devise strategies that will tame inflation through a basket of responses, ranging from plugging supply gaps to injecting non-monetary measures so that prices will be stable. I am certain that he will be championing reforms, leverage his influence in both houses of Congress into passing bills that accelerate growth, draw in investments, and create better jobs, while raising funds that will be invested back for human and physical capital formation. Many of the measures that make tax regimes more efficient, easy to administer and to comply with, and equitable are in the advanced stages in the House, both houses of Congress. The proverbial low-hanging fruit, which can be picked by the towering stature of these two gentlemen here. I also have asked him to be at the forefront of our anti-smuggling drive, pursue tax cheats, starting with the habitual ones who have raised tax evasion not just into an art, but into a business. And when the seductive call of populism beckons, I am sure that Secretary Recto will counsel us on the merits of fiscal discipline, to remind us of the price tag of dreams, and to stick to the kind of stewardship that bequeaths no huge generational debt for our children. Secretary Ralph and I both entered the House of Representatives in 1992. He beat me by a few months at being the Benjamin of the House in 1992. After 15 years, we were reunited in the Senate. still displaying his vintage virtue of being fastidious with the examination of appropriations of the national budget, of revenue and economic numbers. Ask any senator who has worked with him, and I will be the first one to attest to this. We will tell you that his plenary interpolation or interrogation borders on the pure he enters into the detail. And it is a brave senator or congressman now who will rise to interpolate Senator, now Secretary Ralph Recto, because you do not rise unless you are very well prepared, because he is always very well prepared. His work in the legislature is done in a manner that does not generate heat but light. He finds a way through the problems that we see, not to show off or not to cause problems, but to make bills better and to make the function of government more efficient and more equitable. He, we have always suspected that he sleeps under his pillow with the General Appropriations Act under his pillow, and he treats the tax code as leisurely reading, and his copy of the budget and expenditures and sources of financing is probably the most dog-eared book in his house. And any new finance secretary stands on the mighty shoulders of his predecessors, and Secretary Recto is no exception. And we cannot finish this event here this afternoon without a very heartfelt and warm wishes and gratitude to Secretary Ben Diokno for the services that he has given to the Department of Finance in his time as Department of Finance. As you may remember, he was the governor of the BSP when I first came into office, and he was due to retire middle of last year. But I think we all ganged up on him and asked him to please continue as Department of Finance, simply because we had to get the economy, we had to get our policies onto the right track. And he has done a splendid job as secretary. And during his watch, when the pandemic's lingering effects congealed with new crises, which would have created a perfect storm had they not been diffused. Being one of our country's pillars of economic management, we shall continue to rely on your expertise and exuberance as a member now of the Monetary Board. Maraming salamat from a grateful nation, Secretary Ben Diokno. He has, the original plan actually was for us to, I asked Secretary Ben Diokno if he would like to join the Maharlika Investment Fund and the management of that, and to also serve as a liaison between the private sector in that capacity in the Maharlika Fund, as a liaison between government and the private sector and the fund. But he begged off, saying that this is the investment fund, a sovereign fund, is not with what he feels is a specialty of his. So he will return to his purely financial duties now in the Monetary Board. Once again, I cannot thank Secretary Ben Diokno enough for setting the economy onto the right path. He has guided us. He has put the essentials into place. He has made the structural changes that we need. And therefore, he has these economic figures, the results that we are getting, a lot of that can certainly be attributable to the work that he did as Department of Finance Secretary. And what makes me happier is that this changing of the guard in the government's most important outpost is between Batangueños, scions of illustrious Filipinos, patriots and professionals like their grandfathers. And I have saved the best for last. I would like to welcome back to Malacanang the talented and elegant Vilma, who has, you know why I say that she has, I say that she has returned to Malacanang. If you remember, si Ate V, siyang gumaganap kay Aimee sa mga sine. Yung una, yung Iginuhit ng Lahi, at yung Iginuhit ng Tadhana, and the next one was Ipinagbuklod ng Lahi. And I still remember the time that I really became friends with her was when they were shooting here in the palace in 1968, preparing for the elections of 1969. So it's a welcome back to the palace. It took me a long time to get Secretary Ralph to say yes, but I was told it was still shorter than the time for Vilma to say yes to Ralph almost 40 years ago. Kaya sineswerte pa rin itong ating kaibigan na si Secretary Ralph. My fellow Filipinos, these two gentlemen embody the values of competence, integrity, and a deep sense of responsibility that we look for in our government leaders. Together, they will form part of a dynamic team committed to steering our economic policies towards inclusivity and progress. We will work towards creating an environment that encourages investment, stimulates economic opportunities, and uplifts the lives of every Filipino citizen. I thus call upon everyone to support our new secretaries as they assume these critical roles in the government. Let us join hands and build a future where economic prosperity is shared by all, where opportunities abound, and where the Philippines stands tall on the global stage. Thank you very much, and good afternoon. Okay. Do we open the floor to? All right, let's take some questions from the members of the press.
Thank you, Mr. President. And now we open the floor to some questions from the media, starting with Alan Francisco of PTV4.
Hi, Mr. President, everyone. Magandang hapon po. Yeah. Sir, why change horses in midstream? Ano po sa palagay ninyo yung mga offer ni Secretary Recto sa table sa pangalawang taon po ninyo sa pwesto bilang Pangulo ng Bansa?
We are not changing horses in midstream. We are continuing the policies that we had laid out from the beginning. It would be, I would think, poor judgment on our part, having seen the effects of the changes in policy, the changes in structure, as you would say, to change them in the middle of our progress, and we are making such good progress. But it was just time for Secretary Ben Diokno. He felt that it was time for him to return to his natural habitat, if you will, in the Bangko Sentral and in the Monetary Board. In terms of what Secretary Ralph has to offer, I think there is no need to enumerate that. His experience as NEDA head and his experience in the legislature. I really, what I said very quickly in my statement is that he has always been the lead